Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to this tutorial. I'm Salar, and in last part and first part, we got familiar with Linux GUI, Linux terminal, and some simple commands. And now in this part, second part, I want to keep on this tutorial with some other commands, some other simple commands. Okay. Let's open the terminal. In the first part, we learned some commands like make directory, or touch for create file, or change directory, or listing, and some options. For example, L for beautiful list with more information, and A for showing hidden files and directories. Okay, now another thing. pwd, I'm in home directory, and I want to create a directory in that mkdir and test1, for example. ls-l, here is test1 directory. L for clearing the screen, and change directory to test1. Press tab for automatic completing. Okay, pwd, I'm in test1 directory. Now in test1, I want create a file, for example, main.txt. Okay, now ls, and I have main.txt. Now in GUI, if I open test1 directory and main.txt, I can type, and I can enter some contents in my text file. For example, hello world, and press save button and out. Okay, now the content of my main.txt file is some string. For example, now is hello world. How can I see the content of a text file? There is a simple command for that. Cat for see the content of the text file, or other text file. For example, see your programming file, C file, JavaScript, or other things. Now cat, and for the option, I should say the name of the file. Press enter. It's the content of my text file. Okay, how can I change the contents of a file, a text file, or file in terminal without using GUI programs like, for example, this program that can open text files? There is a terminal program for editing the text. A text editor in commands. There is some text editor in commands, but a simple text editor is Nano. Okay, Nano. If I press Nano, I can open a text editor. Free text editor. It has it don't have any content. I can press Control X for exiting. Here, the bottom of it, I see some. I can see some key and command information in that. Control X for exiting. Okay, Nano and Control X. Okay, if I want to open main.txt, I should write Nano and the name of my text file, and press enter. Now I have hello world, and I can add some other content to this file. Sorry. Okay, press enter and add another content. And this is Solar, and this is an introduction to Linux terminal. Okay, and if I press Ctrl X for exit, it says save modified buffer. Save the contents, the appended contents. If I press Y, I approve saving, and if I press N, I omit the saving. And if I press Y, it says, do you want contents saved in a file with the name of main.txt? I can change the name, for example, main1, but I want save it to main.txt. And if I press enter another time, if I main.txt, contents are added to my file. Contents are added to my file, and Ctrl X, and if I cat main.txt, I can see the contents of my file. Okay, here is contents of my file. Okay. Now, there is a tricky command for filtering some output line of my command output. For example, output of cat main.txt in terminal is the content of file main.txt, or output of ls-l command is the content of my directory. Okay, for example, cat main.txt, the output is here. Clear a screen, cat main.txt, output is here. But I want filter those lines, for example, contain and special string. For example, I want to filter this line, and this line is contain Solar. This file contains Solar. There is a tricky command for that, and you should append this command to your command. For example, let me to give a sentence. For example, cat main.txt. If I append this command to that with or sign, correct? For example, Solar. This appended command to my command filter those lines that contain Solar. In this command, I just have one line that contains the Solar, and if press enter, this filter line for me. Or if I, for example, let's say, if I want to back to the elder commands, I can use from up and down arrow in my keyboard. If I press up, I go to last command. If I press up another time, to elder commands, and if I want to return to newer command, down arrow in my keyboard. Okay, up and down. Okay, if I press one time up arrow in my keyboard, I can see last command. Okay, now if I press this command, okay, now there are two lines that contain this. Grab those lines that contain this. There is two lines because we have two lines in our files or file that contain this in its line. Okay, if I change directory to home directory and press ls-la, for example, I have many output line from my command. Okay, but I want to, for example, filter a line that it contains, for example, OBS. If I press ls-la or sign grep OBS, I have just one line that it contains OBS, like this line that is here. Okay, grep command is for filter lines with specific string. Okay, pwd, I'm in my home user directory, and I want to create another directory in that. mkdir, for example, this time test2. Now, if I ls-l, I have test1 and test2 directory, and if I press ls-l grep test, I have two lines that are filtered, that they contain test string in those. Okay, let's open GUI and do some GUI works. For example, in test1 directory I have a text file, and if I want to copy or cut my file or directory, like Windows or other operating systems that have GUI, I can right click on my file or directory and copy or cut that. Okay, copy, for example, copy that, and here click paste. Okay, I can copy and I can delete that. Delete. Okay. Now, how can I do copy or cut in terminal? What are commands for copy and cut? First, I want to talk about copy. The copy command in Linux terminal is cp-copy, and if I want to copy, for example, now I'm installer and cd to test1 pwd, I'm in test1, and if I press ls, I have main.txt. I want to copy this text file to test2 directory. I can type cp, name of the file, cp main.txt to test2.folder. I'm in test1.folder. I should write the name of that directory that I want copy my file to, that home salar and test2. Press enter. Now if I change my directory to home salar and test2 and pwd, I'm in test2 directory now. I should have a main.txt in that, and if I press ls, now I have main.txt. Okay, I have main.txt in that, and I copied my file to this directory. Okay, let's delete that. rm main.txt, and if I press ls, I have no content. no content and no contents here. Okay, another time, back to test1 directory, cd double point for back to Solar, and here I change directory to test1. Okay, now I'm in test1. Okay, another time I want to repeat this comment, copy main.txt to test2 with up arrow I can, okay, here, but sometimes this absolute path is too long. How can I decrease this path? I can do this work. It's equal to this, because we are in test1 here, okay, with 2 point and 2 dot. We back to home and Solar, and in that we go to test2. Okay, it's like that. We can use from relative addressing. Okay, relative addressing, and if I press enter, another time change directory to another time relative address test2. Now I'm in test2. Okay, and if I enter listing file, now I have main.txt. Another time I have main.txt. Okay, so we can use relative addressing for these commands. Control L for clearing the screen. And now I'm in test2 directory, and I want to, for example, copy main.txt here. Okay, here. Can I copy main.txt here? It returns me an error. It says are the same file. You can't have two files with same name in a directory. But if I press, for example, another name, and main1.txt, I can't do that. And if I press ls, now I have two files. Yeah. Okay. This was copy command in Linux, a brief introduction to copy the command in Linux. What can I do for cut a file from a directory to another? The cut command in Linux terminal is mv, move. Move means command. mv is for cutting a file from a directory to another. Okay, now I want to move main1.txt from test2 to test1. I can write move main1.txt to double point back to upper, for back to upper directory, and from that go to test1. Okay, send main1.txt to test1 directory, and if I press enter, now if I enter ls, I don't have main1.txt anymore. I don't have main1.txt because it's moved to text1 directory. It's moved to text1 directory. Okay, and if I change that directory to test1, now I'm in test1. And if I press ls, now I have main1.txt here. It's for moving file or directory. Move and copy can work for file and directories. You can do all of things for directories, like file, cp and mv are not just for files. They are for files and directories. Okay. But move command has another usage for and it's renaming a file. For example, I want renaming main1.txt file, for example, to main2.txt. How can I do that? How can I rename the name of this file? I can write mv main1.txt to main2.txt, and if I press enter and another time plus, now I have main2.txt, and if I cat main2.txt, I have those contents. So move can be used for renaming a file or directory. Okay, that is where some information about copy and cut some files or directories in Linux terminal. Okay, let's talk about some useful information in Linux and talk about Linux security. Okay, if I change my directory to root directory, base directory of Linux operating system, Control N, and press ls-l, I have some directories here, directories and files here. And if I change directory to bin, now I'm in bin directory, root and subdirectory bin. Okay, press Control L, and I want to create a file here. For example, so touch test1.txt, and if I press enter, it returns me an error and says you don't have permission denied, error. You don't have permission to create a file in bin directory. And why? Because some directories in Linux need more permission to create a file or directory, or sometimes read them. As you can see, my username file system, my username, for example, is Sal. I have another user as test, but my username is Sal. And if I see my username in terminal, I can type who am I. I'm logging as Salar. Okay, and Salar user don't has enough permission to write information and create a file or directory in bin directory. Okay, we need more permission. There is a special user in Linux that it's the base user of Linux. It's root. Okay, and if you log in as a root in Linux, you can do all of things and you have all of permissions. So how can I log in as another user, for example, root? And the command is switch user, switch user to root. Okay, I'm in Solar user and I want switch user to root, and if I press enter, it says give me the password of root. How can I set the password of root? I will talk about that in this part. That how can I set a password for a user? I set a password for root user before, but I will say you how you can do that. And if I press the password of root and press enter, now I'm logging as root. Okay, it's the user, and what's that? It's the Salar is owner of this terminal because we opened the terminal as Salar user, and the owner of terminal is Salar, but the user that works now is root, for example. So if I press type who am I log in as root. Okay, no root. And if I press pwd, I'm in bin directory like here. And if I write this command another time, touch test1 dot takes and press enter. Now it doesn't return an error to me, a permission denied error to me. And now I've created the test1.txt in bin folder, and if I press ls -l grep with test1 and press enter, now I have a file test1 in my bin directory. And if I want delete test1.txt, my text file from this directory, I can type rm test1.txt. Okay, and if I press enter, now if I another time ls-l and grep test1, I don't have test1.txt anymore here. Okay, so as a root login, I can do all of things in root user. You have all of permissions, and if I exit to my last user login to Solar, press exit, and I'm exit from this login. Now if I press who am I'm logging as Solar here. Okay, you need root permission, for example, for installing a software, because when you want to installing a software, you need to write some file, and you need to create some file, for example, in binary directory in your Linux operating system. And if you want to install a software, you need to log in as a root user. But when we log in as a root user, we have some problems. For example, as you saw, when you log in as a root, you can do all of your things and you can run all of your command with complete permission. When you are a root user and you log in as a root. But sometimes I want to run just one command as a root user, and when you log in as a root, you can do a lot of things as a root user, and it's dangerous, and it's a security problem. Another problem is when you want to log in as a root user, you need the password of root. SU, for example, when you press su.root, you need the password of root user, and it's not true to give password of root user to other users, and it's a security problem. So these are some security problem when you log in as a root user. Another time I am logging as a root user. I think I entered the password wrong. Another time, enter my password now. I'm logging as a root user, and I want to another managing work. For example, I want to create another user in my operating system. As you can see, I have two users here, Solar and Test1. I want to create another user, for example, Test1 user. The name of user is Test1. When you want to add a user in your operating system, you should have a root permission. You need the root permission. Now, I log in as a root. Who am I? I'm root. And now I want to create another user. The command is user add. Okay, user add. And if I want to set a name for that, I can just enter the name, for example, test1. But if I want to create a directory for that here in my home directory, I should add -m option to my command. And if I press enter, now I have another user, test1 here. It's created automatically by user add command. Okay, now if I want to set a password for user, you need to set a password for user. As I said before in this part, your users need a password, like root that has a password. The command is passwd, passwd, and the name of my user. Press enter. It says enter password and retype and confirm your password. Okay, password update successfully. I can now switch to test1 and press enter. Now, as you can see, it doesn't need password because I'm root. Here you are root, and when you want to log in to a user from root, you don't need any password. It's one of the security problem of routing, login as a root. When you log in as a root, there are some security problem. One of those is when you want to log into another user from root, you don't need any password. Now, if I press who am I'm in test1 user. If I enter exit, now I'm in root. Another time, if I enter exit, now I'm in Solar. Who am I? I'm in Solar. But if I want to log in to test1 from Solar, I should write switch user to test1. Now I need my test1 password. Okay. Now, who am I? I'm test1 user. Okay. I'm test1 user. Exit to Solar. Okay, now how can I create a file in bin directory when I log in as a user that's not root? For example, Solar. Who am I? I'm Solar. I'm not root. But here I want to create a file in bin directory as Solar, and I don't want to switch user to root. There is a tricky work and tricky command in Linux. It's super-user-do. When you add super-user-do first of your command, you can do all of things like root. Okay, like root. For example, I type super-user-do touch test1 in bin directory, and if I press enter, it wants Solar password. Okay, password for Solar, not password for root. Okay, password for Solar. If I press enter, I can do that, and if I enter ls-l grep test1, and now I've created test1 in bin with Solar user permission. Okay, with Solar user permission. And if another time I repeat this command without Solar, it returns permission denied error. Okay, so if you want to super user works, you need to append sudo first of your command. Okay. If you want to open another terminal, you can press Ctrl Alt and T in your keyboard, and I open another terminal. And now I want to create another file in bin directory as a test1 user. Okay, so switch user to test1, press enter the password of test1. Now I'm test1. Okay, clear screen. Now I want to change directory to bin pwd. I'm in bin directory. Okay, now if I want to create another file, in bin directory I should have a super user permission, so I type sudo touch in this time test2.txt, and if I press enter, it says give me the password of test1, press enter, and it returns an error. Sorry. What happens? And what happened? When you want to add sudo in the first of your command, you need to convert your user to a sudo user. Okay, to a sudo user or sudo user. First user in your Linux operating system, after you install Linux operating system, is a sudo user. So Solar is a sudo, but test1 that I have created is not a sudo user. So how can I create a sudo user to do some things and to do some commands that need root permission. As a sudo user with sudo command, you can do all of things like root user. So if a user was a member of sudo group, it can use sudo command in its commands, and it can append sudo command the first of its commands in terminal. So, and what's group? For example, assume you want to give a permission to Solar, Test, and Test1 to all of your users. Sorry. For example, if you want to give sudo permission to all of these users, you need to add these users to sudo group. So how can I see in which groups I have membered? Okay, for example, why am I'm Solar. In which group Solar is membered? If I enter groups, press enter, Solar is a member in Solar group, ADM group, CD-ROM group, sudo group. Sudo group is a special group, okay, or another groups. A user can be member in more than one group. Okay, you can be member of some groups. For example, here in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Solar is member in 8 groups. Okay, so if I go to another terminal, that who am I? I'm test1. And if I enter groups here, and the test1 is member of test1 group, just test1 group. When you create test1 user, the command automatically create a group as the name of with the same the name of your user. So test1 is a member of just one test1 group. So how can I add test1 to sudo group? If you want to add a user in sudo group, you need root permission, or you can do that with sudo, because a sudo user has a root permission. If I can do that with sudo and user mode, change the user, and I want to change the user and then member my user test1 in a group. The option is dash hyphen and capital G. After that, I should write sudo group and test1. Okay, I want to add test1 in sudo group. I can write more than one group here. For example, sudo, Solar, and another groups. Okay, but I need another option, dash a append option. Why I use from dash a option? Because if I type this command without dash a option, I member test1 just to one sudo group, and test1 is deleted from test1 group. I want append sudo in my groups. I want append sudo to test1. I want to as I want to have test1 group membering, and I append to that sudo. And if I press enter, I should enter solar password now. Here, if I another time type groups, what happened? Sorry. Oops, press enter. Let's exit another time. Login to test1. And clear the screen and enter groups. Okay, here. Now, test1 user is member of sudo group. Okay, now I can append sudo in the first of my command as test1. Where am I? In home solar cd to bin. Now I'm in bin directory. Now if I enter sudo touch test1.txt and press enter and enter test1. Now if I search for test1.txt, okay, now I have test1, and I've created test1 because now test1 is a sudo user. Sorry. Okay, enough for this part. And I keep on talking about groups, permission, changing the permissions of files and directories, owner of files and directories, and many other things in next part. Thank you so much.